Clam! No, not you again. We're not doing this. I don't have a story for you. I think you should just get over it out. Go on, mind your business. Nothing to see here about now.
Wait a minute, Ming. Can't I just stop in and say hello?
Well, it never is just hello with you, is it now, huh? All right, come on in, Terrell. But I'm not telling you any stories. I'm all out.
But Ming, I always love your stories.
But like I said, I'm all out of them. You heard them all already?
Well, thought you might say that. So I went ahead and created a robot with the specific purpose of telling us what this week's story is.
Oh, fantastic.
Ming, I'd like you to meet Country. Come on out, Country!
Great. It has a name now, too. Good for you. All right, how's this thing work?
Okay, maybe you just press this button right here.
Now, what in tarnation is this thing doing?
Well, it's giving us the history lesson of the day.
Yeah, that's what you said it would do. But what's with the beeps?
Well, I programmed it to deliver the topic in Morse code.
And why would you go on and do a thing like that? Huh?
Well, Ming, I
Hmm?
figured you'd know Morse code and it would be fun.
And why would I know that? Hmm? Is it because I'm older than dirt?
No, Ming, but you gotta have been around forever.
Shut your clam. That's ageist.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ming. I'll work on fixing that for next time. Let me think about this for a second. Well, I know. I've seen wrestling in the news a lot lately. Why don't you tell me a story about wrestling? How about WrestleMania? What's that about?
You want to ask me about WrestleMania? First, you assume that I'm old enough to know Morse code, and then you ask me about something that just happened.
I mean, what about the first WrestleMania?
You know I was around for the gladiators fighting in Roman Coliseum, right? But WrestleMania it is. That was like yesterday for me. But whatever.
Kind of heard the WrestleMania is 2 nights now, so maybe it was yesterday.
Shut your clam, you know what I meant.
Hmm.
Fine, have it your way. The first WrestleMania. Where to start? Well, this is how I remember it anyway. Throughout the years, human beings have loved gathering around in a circle to watch people hurt each other for their own amusement.
Hurt each other? Somebody told me wrestling was fake.
Ow! There! Was that fake?
No, it wasn't fake.
Well, neither is wrestling. Wrestlers put on real shows and they get hurt all the time.
They get hurt all the time? All I see is a bunch of bruised egos.
Alright, back to the story. So, because they are doubters like you, wrestling was always sort of like a cult thing. Wrestlers and wrestling promoters stayed in their own part of the country and put on shows for the locals. Then, of course, is until someone named Vince McMahon came along with the World Wrestling Federation. You see, Vince wanted to prove to his daddy that he could run his own wrestling business. He decided the way to do it was to buy all the best wrestlers from around the country so they could come to the WWF and work for him.
But wouldn't that make the other owners kind of mad?
Oh, you're right, it did. But Vince didn't care what they thought. He was going to do it his way with some, ruthless aggression. You're fired. Besides making everyone else mad, it was also risky because it was costing Vince a whole lot of clams to do it. A whole lot of that fabulous moolah. But Vince wasn't the kind to go home, so he decided to go big. He was going to put on the biggest wrestling show anybody had ever seen.
Oh, you mean like a wrestling
Ow! You trying to get a suit or what? You mean like the big game of wrestling?
superb owl?
Get out of here, Clyde. You know what? I'm just going to play it safe from here on out and call the event WrestleFest.
WrestleFest. Well, that's pretty catchy.
Well, not really, but it's safer. Anyway, Vince got all the biggest stars in wrestling and he teamed them up with the biggest names in rock and roll and sports entertainment and put on a show like nobody had ever seen. It was in New York City in a place called Madison Square Garden.
The world's most famous arena.
I told you to scram card. So the show wasn't just at Madison Square Garden with all those people in it. It was also shown all around the country. Something called closed circuit television. Speaking of which, I better get one of those installed so I can see you jabronis coming next time. But I digress. In those matches, you had Tito Santana, King Kong Monday.
Did you say Monday or Bunday?
I don't know. It was the American boys, Wyndham Rotunda versus a very un-American Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Greg the Hammer Valentine. There was Brutus the Unlicensed Barber. And you had Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg?
Oh yeah, he came later. Junkyard Dog.
For shiver.
And then you had a body slamming contest between Big John Studd and Andre the Giant. We get towards the main events. You had the Women's Championship, where it was the Hula and Muda Connection facing off against rock and wrestling superstar Cyndi Lauper and, can't remember her name, but, her blue colors were shining through.
I didn't realize a woman wrestled too.
Get with the times, Terrell. Girls just want to have fun too.
Moaning and groaning.
Then came the main event with all the pomp and circumstance. New York Yankees legendary manager Billy Martin was the guest announcer. We had Liberace with the Radio City Rockettes. And then special guest referee, the legendary Muhammad Ali. Flew like a butterfly, sting like a bee. They were all there for the main event where we had a tag team match between a team of Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and the bubblegum chewing Rowdy Piper. And they were facing off against the A-team of Mr. T, a pitiful fool who won't eat my cereal, and the immortal Hulk Hogan.
Hustle, loyalty, respect, brother.
Wait, isn't that what another guy says?
Maybe they kind of all blend together for me. There was a lot of back and forth action. People tagged in. There were near falls. People hit each other with chairs.
Are they allowed to do that?
Well, if the ref doesn't see it and it works for the story.
So who won?
Yeah, I don't really remember. Pretty sure it was the good guys, though.
How come you remember some things really well and some things, like, not at all?
Because that's just how memory works, Terrell. You're lucky you're getting the story at all. Also, my seats weren't that great.
Wait, you were there?
Of course I was there. Got my tickets from Excalibur. Excalibur? Excalibur? Anyway, it was a big success for WWF, and they became the biggest wrestling promotion in all the country. Later on, the WWF would change its name to the WWE because of the very powerful Panda Lobby.
Oh yeah, what about Vince McMahon? What happened to him?
How do I put this? Let's just say that sometimes you can have a little too much of that ruthless aggression. Grrr.
Oh, is that all?
Is that all he says? Ungrateful as always.
No, sorry, Ming. I love your stories, that's all. I just didn't want it to end.
Well, like many stories, it's never quite over. But that is all for today. Thankfully. And that was the history of WrestleFest in a nutshell.
Don't you mean clamshell, Ming?
Shut your clam.